stranger. So long, friend, there's a voice in the lonesome wind that keeps whispering.
Of the SBCC Board of Trustees is called to order. And before we begin our work, I'd like to just remind you that our mission statement says that as a public community college, we are dedicated to the success of each student. And I know that's what you're here for. You're all welcome. And now we begin. Everyone is here, Angie, so we don't need to call roll. And then we have some items that we have to take out of order right away. Lori?
Yes, and we'd like to begin by doing our regular classified longevity recognition. And I'd first like to ask Michael Medell to come forward to introduce an individual with a great deal of longevity at Santa Barbara City College.
Hello, board. Today we are celebrating an individual by the name of Candy Gao, who works in admissions and records, and it gives me great pleasure to speak about Candy today. And when I think of Candy, there's a quote that I really like that brings memories of Candy and what she brings to this institution. And the quote is by Walt Disney, and it goes, "You can build, create, and design the most magical place in the world, but it's the people that make the dreams become a reality." And why that reminds me of Candy is because I know we can all appreciate that we work at a pretty fine institution. Let's face it, we're number one. But really, it's people like Candy that make who we are at Santa Barbara City College. Candy came to us in 2005 after spending 20 years working in the hotel industry. So she worked for Hilton, and she had time spent in cities like Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, Huntington Beach. And she expressed to me that when she first started working here, she was a little uncertain of whether she had made the right choice or not after spending 20 years in one profession and then completely switching and learning all of the rules and regulations that come along with A&R. She was wondering, did I make the right decision? But she said that immediately changed once I got in front of students and started serving students. I realized this is what I want to do. I want to make a difference in students' lives, and I know this job will allow me to do that. And I think that attitude, along with her experience, is no surprise to the people that she serves, that her number one ability is customer service. Bar none, I think if you talk to students that she serves, the faculty that she serves, they will tell you firsthand her customer service is phenomenal. And it reminds me of when I first actually started overseeing admissions and records. One of the first weeks there, I had a student knock on my office door, and they said, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not being served by admissions and records. I'm actually waiting to meet with counseling next door, but I've been sitting here waiting, and I'm listening to that woman at the front serve students, and she is phenomenal. I almost want to get in line just so she can serve me. So that just is a good example of the cheer and the attitude she brings to serving people. One of her main responsibilities is being the lead support for faculty in admissions and records, so she assists them with their roster management, with adding classes, dropping classes, any kind of troubleshooting that they need. Candy is that point person. I know all of the faculty will sing similar praises about her service that she provides to them. The other core, huge, tremendous responsibility that she has is working with our athletics department. So Candy processes all of our athletic eligibility. So the reason why we have athletes that are swinging bats and making free throws is because Candy has allowed that to happen. So I know the athletic department is tremendously appreciative of her work. In fact, Joanne Graham, the athletic counselor, said, "Candy is a pleasure to work with. I call her daily regarding athletes. She is always kind and friendly, even when she is stressed out with eligibility deadlines. She is beyond efficient." And athletic director Ryan Byrne, who's also here, said, "Candy is extraordinary in what she does in working with intercollegiate athletics eligibility. She approaches this complex, deadline-driven, detail-oriented, and high-stakes role with a big smile, a lot of hard work, organization, and skill. She has our department's utmost respect and admiration, and we are frightened to think where we would be without her. Candy Guile is an absolute joy to work with. Candy's life outside of work is extremely fun, and I think that explains why she shows up every Monday with a smile on her face. She is a Trekkie, so she does enjoy Star Trek and Star Wars, and you would know that right away if you ever visited her office. I asked her to choose one or the other, and she said, "You can't do that to me, man. I can't choose between those two." She also is an avid comic book collector and loves attending the Comic Can. Her and her husband Brad enjoy riding motorcycles on the weekend as well as camping. And she also has an interest and passion in astronomy, and in fact has been invited by NASA to participate in a variety of discovery events as it relates to social media and spreading the word about the solar system and future NASA initiatives. She is proud of having served and completed her campus emergency certification training and proudly serves as the building and department's emergency response team leader. And in closing, I would just like to add that it's a pleasure having her on our team. And Candy, you should know that the college would not be making the dreams of students become a reality without your service. So thank you.
That was so nice. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to greet you as well today and just say I was very much moved by the quote of the mission statement, because that's true. I have felt that. That is my blessing to be able to work here, is to be able to greet those students, to see those students, to be a part of that. Sometimes I look at the papers or I look at the forums or there's something going on, but behind all that is someone with a dream. And we're here to make that possible. And I appreciate the opportunity and the recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and congratulations, Candy.
Next, I'd like to welcome Dan Watkins up to the podium to speak on behalf of another stellar employee.
Good afternoon, everyone. President Gaskin, members of the board. Today, I'm lucky enough and honored to speak on behalf of Richard Schultz. He goes by Rich. He's been here since 2005. This is 10 years. Before coming to Santa Barbara City College, he worked in networking support for Ericsson out in Goleta. Then he decided to try his hand at something a little different. He actually became a licensed massage therapist and said it was really tough to make money. So he set his sights back on something having to do with technology. And that's when he applied for a job here at the college to work in the tech services shop with Liz and Jason and others. And he was actually hired by my predecessor, Kent Richards. And he worked with Jason closely, walking around the campus, running around the campus, fixing computers, making sure everyone could do the work that they needed to do as technology kept growing and is still growing on our campus. He then, after 2 years, there was a job open in network services, so he moved up into network services, and he's still running around the campus making things work, but it switched from computers to the electronic doors, to making sure all of our wiring closets that run our network, so we have network connectivity. He runs around making sure all the registers work. Whenever there's a register at any time, day or night, they put in a work order and Rich is on it, getting that register running so students can get their food and nutrition. And then the other thing he does in those in that aspect is keeps all of the backup batteries running. I mean, I can't tell you all the critical things. I mean, he takes the lead in that and making sure everything stays up. So when we have a power outage, those batteries kick on. He's responsible for a lot of stuff. And the other thing is whenever anyone in network services goes on vacation or goes to a conference, he's the backup. He is actually the grease in the gears in making sure everything is functioning and continues to function when someone is out. So it's an honor to work with Rich, to supervise him. He's always got a great story. So if he ever stops you, whatever you're talking about, he's got a great story that kind of relates to what you're saying. And they're sometimes really funny. Sometimes they're really touching. So if you ever get a chance to just spend a few minutes with Rich, and then just the last thing that he does is he's so conscientious. The other day, he's in the van pool. He uses the van pool to commute here, and they were stuck in traffic. And he had Cindy Rogers in accounting text me to let me know they were all stuck in traffic and they were going to be late. So I really appreciate Rich and all he's done for the college and all he's going to do for the college. And I am honored to represent him today and talk on his behalf for 10 years of wonderful, dedicated service. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you. I've enjoyed working here. I was a student here from '84 to '86, and when I graduated, after I graduated, I realized that being a student here was the best scholastic experience I'd ever had in my life, and it continues to be that way. And I really enjoy working here as well and supporting this great institution. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations, Rick. You're an example of exactly what we hope our students will say 10 years after, or 20 or 30. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Lori?
Yes, the next, Barb Freeman, please, if you wouldn't mind coming forward.
So I'm here today to recognize Donna Wagner for 10 years of service with the SBCC community as tutoring coordinator, and to thank her for her dedication. Her effort to direct individuals to the right resources is a key reason why students can find the help they need to achieve their goals. Donna contributes immensely to the success of our tutoring program, where she manages schedules, budgets, and materials for a wide range of departments. She cooperates with various groups across campus every day, including faculty, staff, and students, and she shares her wealth of knowledge with all of them. Students in particular find her kind assistance very helpful as they make connections with a multitude of tutors across campus. Before the semester ever begins, Donna guides tutors through the hiring process. She then works closely with HR to ensure a smooth start to the term. Most recently, she sought a more efficient way to coordinate and streamline the various stages of the hiring process, serving on the committee that piloted the shift from a paper-intensive system to a much more efficient electronic version. Donna helps both tutors and supervisors to better understand a very intricate process. As the semester progresses, Donna guides students to find what they need to succeed at SBCC, both within the LRC and elsewhere. She helped Gateway to transition from a small to a major presence on campus, and she continues to be a key player in coordinating efforts to connect students with tutors in a variety of disciplines. She's also responsible for recognizing the efforts of a large group of people in a very personal way, particularly during National Tutoring Week, when she celebrates tutors' contributions. Donna is constantly striving to improve her skills and increase her knowledge in her position as tutoring coordinator, which she accomplishes through professional development and by partnering with others throughout our community. Many groups seek her expertise, and as a result, her input has been requested on various committees here at SBCC. She served as a key contributor on several interview committees, as well as the HR Technology Committee, the WASC Self-Study Accreditation Committee, and as an active member of CCG. Her extensive experience and energy have benefited our organization tremendously. I appreciate the time to share her accomplishments over these past 10 years, and I would again like to extend sincere appreciation for her efforts and all that she does to help others succeed.
I'd just like to say that in the last 10 years, I've been very, very fortunate to work with tutors, the student tutors, and to work with people and the students looking for the tutors. So it's been a great joy that if in any way I have made any of these people's experience, their educational experience, hi Nicholas, a tutor, if I've made any of their experience a more positive one, then I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Congratulations, Donna, and thank you to all of you for the remarkable work you do. More, great.
And I have the honor and privilege of doing this one. I am able tonight to recognize 15 years of extraordinary service provided by Angie Escada. We all know that working with students is both fulfilling and certainly challenging at times. But can you imagine working with a board and a superintendent president and recognizing how both fulfilling and challenging that can be? And Angie has done that with grace and with competence and with, if this is a word, unflappability. Kim, is that a word, unflappability? Thank you very much. Angie, by far, is the most calm individual in this position I've ever seen. And you can well imagine the crises that I am dealing with and that all of you as a board have to contend with in different situations. And Angie is remarkable in being able to multitask, take that all in her very typical way, handle everything with such grace and with such skill. It has long been recognized that the individuals who really run the institution are those individuals who support us, that being Angie, Bev, who I see sitting in the audience, Phyllis, Becky, Joyce, all of these individuals who really form that cadre of support, without whom we would not be able to function truly. And Angie's gifts and talents permeate the institution, and you sense that with the welcome and the celebration that the individuals in the audience showed. Can you, I just want to ask you to think about Angie's work life relative to the context of cycles. A board meeting cycle is quite intense, and you put those 2 board meetings a month together, and then you add on at a minimum 2 subcommittee board meetings a month, and everything is very, very cyclical. She is incredibly well organized and is able to manage a life of cycles with such skill and, as I used before, grace. It is without question that it is because of Angie that I can do my job, and in so doing, help you do yours and help the institution do yours. So with, I'm sure, the entire institution behind me, I thank you, Angie, for 15 years of service, and look forward to 3 times more of that together. Angie, if you wouldn't mind, please.
course, public speaking is not my idea of fun, but in 1999, when I began as an administrative assistant in student life, I never imagined working in the president's office. The last 15 years have been filled with many changes. However, the one constant thing that I notice is the great dedication of our staff and faculty, and I'm proud to be a part of this great institution. And I also would like to thank Lori and the board for all of their support.
Congratulations and thank you, Andrew. Okay, now,
Yes.
the next
Now-
item.
Yes, I would like to introduce Julie Hendricks to introduce the presenter for our Measure V annual report.
No, we're doing that after this. These are people we wanted to be able to have, if they wanted to.
Members of the board, President Gaskin, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Jack Ostrander, the chair of the Measure V Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Our committee meets several times each year, and our task is to see that the bond funds are all spent according to the things that the bond was voted in for. And so I'm happy to report that all the funds have been spent accordingly, and there's not a whole lot left of the bond fund, but they're being handled in a proper order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in your board packet, you have the annual report that has been reviewed by the Measure V Oversight Committee. And Mr. Ostrander is absolutely right. We're in the final phases of Measure V with construction pending of our West Campus classroom and office building.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the final out of order item is a very special one. As you know, we've begun showcasing faculty who have been on sabbatical leave and have engaged in a project of great interest and passion to them. And at your last meeting, you heard our first for this academic year, which takes into account sabbaticals that have occurred in 13-14. So it is my pleasure to introduce Federico Penato, and Fedi will present his sabbatical to the board.
My name is Federico Penato, and I teach in the ESL and I work on a one-semester sabbatical in which I created a series of online grammar exercises that included video. And so I adapted those exercises to my Moodle page. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? I adapted these to my Moodle page, which you are looking at now, with this image that you think, what does this have to do with grammar? It's just a subliminal thing to make them think that grammar is a really relaxing thing. So, and the reason I created these exercises with video is because, with language, it's pretty tricky to recreate a real situation in the classroom. So you know, with all the advances in technology, I think, and I'm going to show you some of that right now, briefly. I think we've come a pretty long ways into allowing students to apply grammar rules in more real situations. So here's an example of an exercise that tests for wish plus the past perfect tense. So students would watch their little video clip, which you might think you recognize, but this is actually an ESL student who's a little overstressed with grammar. And here's an ESL teacher trying to get her coffee in the cafeteria. So after students watch this video, they have to apply the past perfect tense correctly in each of these blanks. So I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's rather small, but it says here, she wishes she blank to marry someone else. So obviously she wishes she had married someone else. Then students check to see their score. If their entry is not correct, the computer will tell them, and it will give them some feedback that I've already entered them there to help them answer correctly. But at the same time, it will mark some points off. So they get points for each one of these activities that they do online. And then when they are done, I'm going to show you what the student would see here. Once they've submitted, they'd be able to see all the answers that they've put in, including this one, for example, that has mistakes, and that's why it's only counted for 9.47 out of 14. So the great advantage is that the student can see what mistakes they made, and the instructor can see also what mistakes they made. And this is important because then we are able to address exactly what we should be reviewing in class. It used to be, when I took French a long time ago, the extent of technology was a cassette tape where we repeated whatever Madame Fournier said over and over without having any clue of whether we had said it right or we were applying the rules correctly, et cetera, et cetera. And now we have all these great advantages that allow us to see what mistakes we made, what mistakes our students made, and even all these useless things like what time they wrote their homework and how long it took them. But actually, how long it took them sometimes is a good indicator of whether it was easy enough for them or not. So here's some more. They all have the same format, but this one, for example, tests on reported speech. This one on reported speech with questions. This one on the third conditional tense. And same thing, you know, they submit these. I created 23 of these that currently work, another 6 that I'm trying to repair. But I don't use all 23 at the same time, the same semester, so I have some backup things to use in separate semesters. And I created all these exercises with videos from this handy little website. It's a rather new website called movieclips.com. It has hundreds of clips from just about every movie you can imagine. And as you can see here, it has a little button to trim the actual section of the video you want. And I think this is going to take a little long, but the other, once this loads up, the other things that they have is also a very handy embed code that those of you who use computers know. You would put this code in the page so that you see the image of the movie right away. And finally, the other part of the sabbatical that I worked on was looking through all the grammar books from Pearson Longman. and selecting all the exercises that I could coordinate with these videos. So I actually selected those exercises first, and then I created the videos to complement those exercises that I had chosen. And then I am testing all those exercises. I tested a bunch last semester, and I'm testing them this semester. And eventually, I will filter the best ones, and they will be included in a custom reader to replace the other custom reader that I have been using so far. So those were my 2 projects for my sabbatical. Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fetty. These sabbatical reports are really impressive. Great. I want to take the class.
I particularly like that presentation and been amazed by the ones I've seen so far, because it's like these professional teachers are appealing to different ways that their students learn as individuals by presenting things in different ways at the same time. It's just, it goes a long way since the dark ages when I was in school. And way to go. Thank you.
Now, before we go into the reports, we need to find out if there are any citizens who'd like to speak with us. Thank you, Angie. All right. Now we're ready, Kim. Thank you.
Minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're quite right. Okay. We have 2 minutes sections that we need to look at and approve: the minutes of December 4th and the January 22nd minutes. And I would entertain motion on either those separately or together, as you wish.
I move to take minutes from December 4th, 2014 and January 22nd together.
Thank you.
For approval.
I move for approval. Sorry.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we're done with the minutes, and I have my glasses on, so I think we're ready. We don't have any special recognitions, and so now, Kim, we are ready.
Well, getting to begin with the recognitions in the sabbatical report reminds us why we love working here.
That's right.
And being part of this community. So, wonderful start to the meeting. The rest of the trustees know about this little tradition I've started, but for Trustee Aboud, I will describe briefly week 6. So I did talk about this in the fall, but I like everybody to realize the rhythms of the academic calendar, which are now, my rhythms forever. But when I last saw you, that was the first week of classes. So that was excitement and promise, and students had their planners and nothing was written in them yet. And so now by week 6, of course, the reality has arrived in all of its beauty and struggle, right? So students are discovering what they need to work on in terms of skills. Instructors are discovering what they need to work on in terms of helping them get those skills. And at the same time, we're also really working on how you balance your life and your schoolwork. All students do this, but community college students especially need to figure this out with demands of family and work. And one of the things we've really worked on as faculty is sharing more strategies of how to empower students to deal with that, to say, yes, you're going to have these obstacles. You don't have to drop out, but you do have to communicate with your instructors, and you do have to go the appropriate support to be able to stay in school and be successful. That's kind of where we are now at week 6. Then I had 3 things to share from what the Senate has been doing. We've had 3 meetings since we saw you last. It's been a full stretch. I don't really need to say it, but BPs and APs, board policies, administrative procedures, are a part of our lives, and we're continuing with that. But I also wanted to mention the Senate just finished its work on the resource request process. So the board will eventually see the budget and the approvals that College Planning Council recommends for funding, but it's really wonderful over these last few years how we have developed through the Planning and Resources Committee and the Instructional Technologies Committees and the outstanding chairs of those committees who work really hard to thoroughly vet all requests, to make sure we have kind of a shared understanding of what is a top priority request. There's transparency in that process, there's a clear timeline, and faculty are really glad that we get to see all of that and then be able to weigh in on the resource choices we make to support instruction. So I know you've seen all of the great work in budgeting that's been coming out of Joe's office and Lindsay and James, and we're also feeling that from our side as we work on program review and resource requests. I wanted to share that with you. We have finished, and it will be going to CPC. The second item I wanted to mention is, I had mentioned it last time when I shared the Make It Visible bookmark for our institutional learning outcome number 6 about personal and career goals. The Senate is now reviewing the language for all of our institutional learning outcomes. It's been, I think, about 8 years, and it's been really fun to see my colleagues argue about a particular word and what it means, and it's kind of funny. It would probably be a Saturday Night Live skit also, but it's really great because we really care about what we're promising our students and what we give them when they leave, and we're really thinking about it for the student audience too. So Colette is on the Senate, which is really great. We're really lucky to have her, and so we can turn and go, all right, come on, which word's better? And so it's really a wonderful process, and you will eventually see those when we're through them all, and they're going to be better. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, we have been talking about this as an institution a lot, and you know about it, but the vast changes that are coming with student equity and triple SP money. So we have a great gift from the state to get these funds to try to really make a difference in student success in terms of equity and in terms of counseling and support services to help students set their goals and reach them. But with that gift, of course, comes a great responsibility as we figure out how are we going to spend that money and how can we measure the results of that investment. And so one of the goals of the Senate is to figure out how we collaborate, plan, and share our approach to these new ways that we're going to try to do things to make a change. We have a lot of faculty, full-time and adjunct, and it's a big project to figure out how to have that conversation. And I think we're doing a good job. We're exploring it. We have really vital committees, new committees for both of these sources of funds, and we're figuring out how they communicate with faculty. And I'll be sharing more details about that as we explore. So thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Dr. Mata.
questions? Okay, thanks.
And next we have Colette. Colette is the president of the student.
Hello, board members and Dr. Gaskin. So first, the articulated buses, hot topic on campus. We've been so unbelievably excited about this new addition to MTD, but more importantly, I think it's a new addition to the campus and the students all together. And I've only heard very positive feedback from everyone, especially at the press conference that Nick and I attended. We officially have a full student senate. We got 12 new senators over the past 2 weeks, and so all of the positions are filled. As of tomorrow, all of the executive positions will be full also. It really amazed me because I had a set person who I really wanted for PR, but the student advocate position was still open, and I had 5 of the new senators talk to me and come to me for interviews, and I think that's the most excitement that I've seen from anyone about getting a leadership position in student government, so that was inspiring. We had club day with roughly 30 clubs show up, ranging from astronomy to feminist club, and we had hundreds of students coming and gathering and just taking a look at what we're all about and students getting involved on campus outside of the classroom. We had a coffee with the senators once this semester so far, and we had a lot of students talking about very similar things, and in the end, most of them revolved around library hours or BuzzShack hours, and now we are working very closely with the library and the different labs on campus about getting extended hours during finals week. So it was good to see that that was a success. And then the last thing is that tomorrow during our meeting, as we get in our final 2 executive members, and then we will also be choosing an event or project to put kind of all of our effort into to move forward this semester.
Thank you, Colette.
Any questions?
You've moved along really fast. Very nice job.
Doing our best.
Yeah,
Thank you.
shows. Thank you. Liz? Reporting for the classified employees.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. The classified consultation groups met a couple of times since our last meeting. We spent a lot of time on board policies and administrative procedures, a lot of time on that. That's quite a project. And we've also were able to appoint a member to the Aspen committee that will recommend to the President Gaskin who will get the award this year from our Aspen Prize. And we reviewed how we participated in the Plunt meeting that our group participated in. And let's see. And the other thing I have is that our CSEA is presenting our initial negotiating proposal today for you to accept. I won't be presenting on it, just you need to accept it so we can start our interest-based negotiation process. And when she talked about the buses, I thought I've been participating in the transportation pilot plan where I park my car at the Garden Street and get a shuttle, and it's working really well for me because most days, except for like today when I can't leave on time, it's working really well for me because it takes me right up to the admin building and it picks me up there, takes me back to my car, and so I'm able to give someone another space to park, and so hopefully it can continue because I think it's working out well for me. Hopefully we'll get more people involved.
Thank
Questions?
you. Great. That's very good to hear. Dr. Gaskin?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to comment that both student trustee Style and President Brown, Colette Brown, are just amazingly strong students in terms of sharing the voice and perspective of our student body. I know that when both of you were interviewed for the articulated bus story, that the press was very, very impressed with both of you. And I, both half joking but very serious, have long maintained that Colette is going to become president of the United States. And I will say I knew her when. And Nick will go equally as far. So it's just affirmation that our students are in very good hands with both of you. The only other thing I wanted to share is on your seat or on your space is a copy of a letter that was sent out to 24,000 individuals in the community in a radius around each of our 3 campuses, inviting these individuals to engage in the PLUMP process, which is our program location and land use master planning process. As part of that very detailed and inclusive process, there are scheduled 3 community forums that are meant to engage the neighbors around each of the communities, and those will be held March 4th, 5th, and 6th at the respective locations at 4:30. That's it.
Thank you, and we urge all our citizens to take advantage of this invitation. It's a very fascinating process and very exciting and important for the college. All right, thank you. And now we are about to discuss the financial report for the foundation. Lori?
Per the board's request, we regularly, 4 times a year, put on for report information the foundation's quarterly report. And actually, that would be, never mind, I'm sorry. The last time we did that, Jim Rivera introduced that, and that was probably back in September, I believe. And then we missed the December one because of transition. So now our new executive director of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation is here, Jeff Green. First time he is presenting to the board, and it will be a recap of half the year from July 1 through December 31.
Welcome.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
I had the privilege with Marty of attending Jeff's leaving yesterday, the wonderful party for him at the fund. And it was plain riotous. So I expect a great deal from this report.
Oh, boy. Well, members of the board, President Gaskin, so I'm still the new guy, so I hope you'll have mercy. But no, I'm really happy to be here. I'm 3 weeks into this role, and I couldn't be actually happier with it. It's an incredible institution, and of course, an incredible foundation that I've inherited actually in a perfect time. As you may know, the last year in particular has been a year of rebuilding a lot of financial systems. You've heard from my colleague Jim Rivera, who's continuing to serve now as Chief Operating Officer, about some of that. So I just want to first give a big thank you to, not only to Jim, but to Karen Svensson, to Zorana Morris, and to Jill Pena in our finance department, because they've really rebuilt a whole lot of how we track and of course raise the dollars that serve the institution. What you have in front of you is a snapshot for 50% of the year, so that's December 31, 2014. And I'll start at the highest level. What you actually have are some notes on the balance sheet and income statement, and then of course you have the statements themselves. So you're looking at the income statement, the balance sheet, and the contributions report as of midway through the year. I'll start with the highest level comment, which is that assuming this pace holds, and we have some big campaigns coming up, you no doubt know about, and this little folder right here will find its way into everyone's hands. This is our campaign for student success materials, which are, of course, happening beginning the 6th of April, going for 4 weeks, and we are currently raising the dollars to do the match, the 50% match on dollars raised during that 4-week campaign. But we are on track for our total income of $6.7 million for this fiscal year. What you see there to date in program support, so this is restricted dollars that have been raised for college programs of $4.2 million as of the 31st of the year. And then you see about $476,000 in unrestricted support that goes to the foundation's operations. So for a grand total of $4.682 million as of year end. On the expense side, you can see similarly there that the program expenses, and as you well know, these come in different waves as needed by the different college programs that they support. $1.669 million, and then operating expenses at the foundation of $811. Now I will point out one thing that I think is going to be a challenge for us, and it's something that I'm sure you've seen in these numbers for quite some time, and that is the general operating of the foundation. The foundation has been fortunate, and you might even just say lucky, that the right dollars have come at the right time to always fill the gap between the unrestricted dollars raised and the actual operation expenses. But that, of course, is not a strategy. That is good fortune, and that is something that makes us happy if you work at the foundation. But in the long term, we need to figure out a new sustainability plan, and that's so one of the three big things on my mind right now going forward is how do we make sure the foundation is healthy, and that it's the right tool for the job. And of course, the job is to raise the resources that the institution needs and all the programs need and all the students need to have their best possible experience at this institution. So we'll be talking in the future about some ideas on how that might take shape, but that is obviously a long-haul project. The second thing is I have had a great number of conversations in these first 2.5 weeks with President Gaskin, and we've been strategizing about how we actually move more dollars from restricted to unrestricted. So there's really three levels of restriction. We're talking about completely unrestricted dollars, which of course can go quite literally anywhere within the foundation and or institution. We're talking about unrestricted dollars for college programs, which of course ends up at the discretion of the leadership and at President Gaskin's doorway. And then of course we have the restricted to program dollars, and that's actually what the vast majority of the dollars to date for quite a long time, probably the history of the foundation, have been raised for. So that is both a wonderful thing, but the balance there is the challenge. So we have to figure out how to make that work for the long haul. If you move from the income statement to the balance sheet, you'll see, and by the way, I apologize there, I started with the income statement. The balance sheet itself, you'll see that the total assets of the foundation stand, the net assets at $53 million. And so you'll see that the vast majority of those are in fact restricted assets, and they're non-current assets. And non-current assets, of course, are those that have various vehicles, much of it through estate planning, that ultimately come our way. The last sheet there, the contributions report, and this is probably the simplest version of what's come to date, but if you're looking at the total goal of 4.5 million for programs, then you can see that we're 3.12. And of course, with the Campaign for Student Success coming, which is a 1.5 million goal this year, that's why I say with a smile that we're on track and that things are looking good for the year. The last thing I'll say about the overarching questions before us, so it's the sustainability long-term for the foundation. It's the move toward as many unrestricted dollars as we can manage. And I have every reason to believe, with what I know of this community and my time in the fundraising world, that there is a lot of love for the institution, and there are incredible resources that we haven't gotten near, frankly. So it's a long-haul build toward that, but I believe that there's a lot to be done, and it will be a very successful next few years. The last thing I'll say is that a big piece of this is really buy-in and the relationship with the foundation and the college. I'm really happy to see that there's a great goodwill. I've had an incredibly warm welcome, and I thank you all for that. You've all been part of that. And so there's a great deal of community building that I think we can do, where the foundation and the college work closer together for the long haul. So I'll take any questions, and I'll lean on Jim if he's willing. And if not, I'll close my mind.
I just want to say welcome and thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Jeff,
You're here.
and thank you so much.
Very refreshing. What a difference.
Okay. Now, we don't have any items for future board consideration.
We have,
we do?
I'm sorry, no. We have one more item under
Oh, yes, we
information.
do, the CLL
Yes.
calendar.
Yes. And Jack, did you want to present that, or you want me simply to share for your information? This is the CLL calendar for the 15-16 academic year. Got it.
You're right on schedule on that one.
Thank you. And it mirrors pretty much the calendar that we've been following, and takes into account the start and end dates of our quarterly structure for non-credit.
Thank you. Again, we don't have items for future board consideration, but we do have some governing board items that we need to look at. We had the Measure V report already covered. We have a question of board protocol, and so this is a quick one. At the last board meeting, I thought the discussion was exciting and important, and I hope we can continue to have that kind of discussion. However, there were a couple of things I wanted to remind you of, because I had to keep close track, and I had a little trouble with that, if you remember correctly, and I thought Angie was riding a bucking bronco. What we need to remember is that we don't discuss before we have a motion. That will make it much easier for Angie to be sure what we are discussing. And then the second, after that, please wait till you are called on. We got really excited at that discussion and didn't always wait until you're called on. I can remember you. If you have your hand up, I will get to you. And I will try to get to all of you once before any of you talk twice. Just so you know, in general, we do not, with this board, and have not for, I think, many years, followed Robert's rules specifically and carefully. And that does not seem to interfere with our discussion. In fact, maybe it helps it to be more informal. But I don't want Angie to fall off the horse. So here we are. Thank you, Angie, for keeping with us last time. And just a reminder, make motions and raise your hand to get called on. All right, and then we are talking about the second reading for the revision of board policies under Chapter 7, and that means this time we actually vote. I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve them.
Thank you, Craig. Second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They have been approved. Thank you.
Can we go back to 3.5, which I think we skipped?
3.5, the...
Reports from the board members or committee
yes,
chairs.
I was going to, yes, we can do it this way, that's fine. Okay. Marcia, do you have a report?
Well, the fiscal subcommittee met February 9th, which is a while ago now, but we reviewed the quarterly report ending September 30th, I believe, that's on the agenda today. Asked our questions, and we recommend the board accept that. We also looked at the updated schedule for the budget development, which is here for information. And Lindsay is keeping us very much on track with that. She loves to organize, and it's great. We looked briefly at the governor's proposal for community colleges in his budget, and I think one of the things that I in particular noticed, and others, that a lot of this money is targeted specifically. It's not as easy to work with in terms of developing our institutional needs. We have to meet the requirements of the state and how the money is spent. So we have less flexibility, but we're happy to have the money. The other items we looked at were the year-end projection. We are going to come out, we think, a little better than we had originally anticipated, but of course we will find that out for sure at the end. And actual money spent to date, which as of the half-year point, we like to look at that and make sure that we're tracking what we had originally budgeted in our original budget and adjusted budget, and that looks good, understanding our schedule for the year, which is not a 50-50 schedule in terms of spending. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Marcia. And facilities?
Facilities Committee, yes, so there are 4 measures today that we're going to vote on, I guess. And it's they're 11.5 through 11.8. 0.5 and 0.7 are involving the lighting changes that we had to do for Arts and Humanities building. And that was brought on by the Coastal Commission about lighting up the wildlife at night, and so we had to make changes. And then there was a change order to that, so that's why there's a change order and then a notice of completion. And we reviewed that in some detail, and it seemed reasonable, and we agreed to endorse that. And then we had the change, the finishing of the windows at the Schott Center. And that's a great project, and we talked about that last time, but now comes the final part of it. And then we had the water line for the main campus here, and that they put in, and that was we had an interesting discussion of how they did that and what it costs us. But it's a notice of completion, and that's a good thing. We apparently have more water pressure than we've had in a long time, and we're doing really good on campus. So we would, we are all together on these 4 items to to have you guys vote and get it out of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you for reminding me, Marty. What I intended to do, and I'll just do it right now, is it has occurred to me that because you give these reports, and then we do other things, and then we come back to those items, it may be, and I'm not changing anything yet, I'm just asking you to think about it, that we want to move the reports of the chairs to the time when we consider the item. In case we have questions, we lose them now. So that's just something to think about, and we can talk about it. So thank you, Marty, for reminding me, and thank all of you. Are you, pardon me?
Ed policies, did they?
Do you want to make a report on ed policies? Yes.
Well, yes, since you attended the meeting, I
Yes, I
think
did.
I should. First of all, I applaud the idea of linking our reports to the subject item when they come up, and I think that's really a positive step. Subsequent to the last election, it occurred to me that we might want to have a careful look at who our student body was. Because there was criticism that we were having too many international students, too many out-of-state students. So we looked carefully at the demographics and found that first, over time, the last 2 years, the differential was not huge. It was very, very close. And that in rough numbers, 7 out of 10 students come from within the county of Santa Barbara. 2 out of those 10 come from either come from outside of our Santa Barbara County, and 1% constitute the student body from either the international sector or the out-of-state sector. So it's a fairly small sector. We also looked at the nature of the contribution made by those students to who we are and to the educational process of our students, and found that it was very, very positive. That's my report.
Thank you, Peter. Lori, would you like to add something?
Yes, and I just wanted to, the numbers can be so confusing. Just to clarify, 7 out of 10 from the Tri-County, 2 out of 10 from outside the Tri-County but in-state, and then 1 out of 10 from out-of-state or international. So yeah, it's that county, Tri-County.
We have discussed in the policy committee and many other times that the extraordinary number of foreign students that are coming to Santa Barbara are both exciting and not SBCC students in general. And we just have to remember that because it changes the numbers if you added every foreign student that came to Santa Barbara. But as you can see, that's really 1 out of 10. Thank you very much for that information, Peter, and Lori, for the addition to it.
It's an interesting point that we should probably look at. You know, what is the nature of the percentage of the international students who actually attend Santa Barbara City College? And I think we will discover that that it is a very reasonable number. But we should look at it.
Yeah, thank you. Greg?
I believe, Madam Chairman, that it's not 1 out of 10, it's 1 out of 100. Because I heard you say describing the foreign
1 out of
students
10
would be 1%, would be 1 out of 100, as
Yeah.
opposed to 10%.
Right.
Lori?
1 out of 10.
It's 10%.
Yeah.
10%, 20%, and 70%. 70% of our
Okay,
students
but I heard
reside in the
earlier than
Tri-County.
someone else said, and I'm going,
I know, that's why I was clarifying. So
Thank
let
you.
me begin again, and I'll put it in percentages.
Yeah.
70% of our student population are from the Tri-County. The vast majority, 2/3, are from Santa Barbara County. But Tri-County, 70%. 20% in the state of California outside of the Tri-County, and then 10% international combined with out-of-state, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, etc. It's also important to note that at any given time, there are between 3,000 and 4,000 additional international students attending other different educational institutions unaffiliated with Santa Barbara City College. For example, we have language schools in town that are private language schools that run fairly robust programs. UCSB is host to, I believe, about 1,900 international students. So when you sum all that, that is far in excess of the number of international students who attend SBCC.
thank you for the clarity, because when different numbers go out there and the
Hard.
public doesn't know which is which, so
Yeah.
it bears repeating.
Percentage?
Thank you
Did I
very much.
use percentage?
You kind of mix, but that's okay.
Well,
You need to watch this show again.
I will. Thank you for the correction.
It depends on whether you're talking about out of 10 or out of 100.
Right.
All right. Thank you, both of you, both for questions and for answers. All right, now, We have several human, you said to me that you don't have any special report. Is that correct this time?
I will comment once you ask Pat to the podium.
Okay.
Yes, I'll comment after her. Yeah.
All right. Then I will ask Pat to the podium. For the human resources agenda items.
Good afternoon, members of the board and President Gaskin, and I'm 100% here. I am here to present the consent agenda items, which are items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4 to you tonight for your approval. If there aren't questions or issues about any of those, you may take those together.
Yes.
I'd like to move approval of 8.1 through 8.4.
Thank you, Peter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And in that action, what you did is something that, as you know, what you do every year, once a year in February, and that is that you grant tenure to certain individuals, and you also extend contracts or not, but in this case you did, to tenure track faculty. So this is a very glorious occasion tonight or today. In addition, we had 3 faculty who are externally funded, and those contracts have time certain end dates, and they receive non-renewals. So that's just a point of clarification.
Nicholas?
I need to change my vote to abstain. I'm listed in some of this personnel.
Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you.
Sorry, Angie.
Good catch.
We should-
Any other comments on this before we move
Yeah,
on?
I think the public should know that I'm sure every board member here read through all of these pages. And it's, in a way, it's just routine. And we didn't mean to disregard the importance of it at all.
No, congratulations to the people who have just received tenure. It's a big day for them.
Yes.
Absolutely. They have a great deal to be proud of. I am also responsible for item 9 on the agenda, which is actually 2 separate items. As you heard earlier, the Instructors Association and the Classified Employees Association are both submitting their initial proposals to us tonight. Item 9.1 is the proposal from the Instructors Association. You will see this twice. This is the first sunshining of this document with us, and the second time you'll see it will be at the next board meeting next month, maybe later this month, actually it'll be next month, which will allow for public comment. So the first item, 9.1, is from the Instructors Association.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention and sunshining it.
Thank you. And item 9.2 is the Classified School Employee Association, Chapter 289 contract proposal with the district. This also is a 2-step process, and this is the first sunshining of that proposal today.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work on this. It looks like long lists to us, but to you, it's people and effort. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. I have the first consent agenda item from Educational Programs, which is new course proposals, modified course proposals, and course deactivations. Most of this is our work in reviewing curriculum every 5 years, and it's here as a consent item.
Are there any questions for Dr. Mana? No? All right.
I move approval of item 10.1, course modifications and new courses.
Second.
We have an approval and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. That list is very impressive. Dr. Friedlander?
Okay, I'm recommending approval of item 10.2, the new courses for the CLL.
I move approval for new courses for CLL.
Thank you, Nick. Second?
Second.
It's been approved, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
I just tend to take that course in psychology, Introduction to Vocal Sound Healing. So if I stub my toe, I want to know what tune to play to make it feel better. Okay, next item is I recommend approval of item 10.3, stipends.
I hope you had a chance to review that, all of the board members. It is slightly different than anything else we do, and is very important in the long run for the success of the center. So I will accept a motion to approve. Or do you want to think about it?
I so move, but I do have I have a simple question.
Okay, as soon as we have a motion and a second, then we
Okay.
have a question.
Second.
Russia. All right, now, Craig, any questions?
Without looking at it again right now in front of me, I didn't find anything that I disagreed with, but over the past couple of years, we've been looking at these lists periodically. It seems like to attend the meetings, it's like a universal $600. But then I was thinking, and I was going to spend the time to see if that amount had changed. Seems to me there was a time when it was like half that, and now to attend meetings.
We have
Is this, you guys set some
we have
standards for that?
We have a standard rate that we apply now. So it's $30 an hour for a meeting, and $50 if they're engaged in professional development activities or a major curriculum initiative.
Okay.
So it's in the IA contract. So it's $30 an hour for a meeting. So when you see a number that's larger than that, it's because it's multiple meetings that adds up.
Okay, I was just curious what the method was, and do you know if has it changed in the past year?
Well, I think what we did was, in our last negotiation, this past fall, we standardized. Prior to that, there was a range, and we said, rather than, it seemed somewhat arbitrary, so we decided to, formalize and standardize the rate. So now it's consistency in rate that we're applying.
So it's hard for us to answer that question if it's gone
I
up
would
or down.
imagine.
Because now we've gotten into a standard per hour rate.
I just noticed a change, and it's not that significant, but I was curious why.
But that's why.
I think you've explained it enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Yes, Nicholas.
I'm noticing there's 3 individuals in the math department provide faculty oversight of the math lab, and I know that the math lab does have its own director. What are they particularly providing in that service?
What they're doing is they're over and above their required hours. They're in the math lab, helping out students, tutoring. They're here on Saturdays sometimes, providing that supervision. So a lot of it's the Saturday work when the math lab is open.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions about any of these items? All right. Then I think we need to do something about that besides saying thank you to Jack. Are there any questions before we approve the actions on stipends? Any? All right.
We're ready to vote.
Yes, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Well, great, thank you. So you did a lot of good work today. You advanced people to tenure, gave people some money for stipends. What a great job.
Now, this is like taxpayers' money, and, not done, it's not like we're just throwing it away. We read all this stuff.
Joe will now be talking about business services, as you know.
Okay,
The first
good.
ones are consent items.
And those are items 11.1 through 11.9, and I offer them to you for your approval.
Is there a motion? Thank you, Peter.
Second?
Second? We had 2 seconds, but thank you, Marty. I think Marty beat Veronica on that. So, Joe, we have a motion and a second to approve the group of items under business services consent agenda.
Any
All in
questions?
Are there questions? You can tell from their faces there aren't. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Joe. Those are approved. Now we have the business action items. These are roll call vote.
And we can take item 12.1 and 12.2 together. That's resolution number 34 for the budget transfer between major objects, and resolution number 35 for the augmentation of revenue.
Are there questions? Well, let's have a motion first, please.
I move approval of item 12.1 and 12.2.
Second?
All right. Now, are there questions? These are the ones that were referred to previously by the committee as having reviewed those. Marcia?
I believe one of the augmentation of revenue reflects a gift, a donation. Is that correct?
Let me go to that.
Now, we have to roll call that then, because there are
No, I was
resolutions,
just going
do
to suggest that we say thank you.
we? That's a good idea.
I appreciate that.
Money.
Okay. Yeah, that was the foundation received a donation in support of the biological science department.
That's great. I understood that that has to be a roll call individually. So 12.1 will be first.
Oh, I see. You want to split them up?
We have to because they're resolutions.
I think we're doing them together.
Okay.
Those two.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Kugler?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Haslam?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Student Trustee Style?
Aye.
Then we go on to item 12.3. It's an emergency resolution number 36 for the repair of a grease trap line. And we do this when something happens that's, in this case, was a particularly onerous situation. And we need to make a repair. It's over our standard bid limits. And so we're required to follow a very rigorous process where we report it to the county, submit a letter to the county. They approve, we approve. And then it comes to the board for approval. It's actually a retroactive approval of what has already taken place because it was an emergency. But we need that resolution before the county will issue payment for that. So that's the process that we follow. And just to describe a little bit, there was a drain line that was clogged. They went into it. It turned out that it had collapsed in several areas. And when they dug it up, it was in very bad shape. And so fortunately, we had a group that, RJ Carroll, that works with us here quite a bit, and they were able to come in and work. They worked over the President's Weekend, so all those 4 days to get it done. They had 4 crews here actually working on it. So it was very important to get it done, and we were very happy. I mean, if you're going to have it happen, have it Thursday before a 4-day weekend, I guess is what we can say. That's the only fortuitous event of that.
Entertain a motion?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right. Any questions?
This was a $32,000,
That's the original estimate. We actually haven't got the final cost of that yet.
but it's
because
going to be in that vicinity?
It'll be in that vicinity. That's what they did. That was the original estimate, and then they compiled it. It's kind of they do it on time and materials because it is an emergency. So they'll come in and they document, and then we review their paperwork and their timesheets, and then we approve it after that. So the final amount will be. It won't be exactly that, but it'll be within that range. For sure.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? All right. All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm the one who said that, and now I got it right. Thank you.
Welcome to the club. Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Kugler?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Haslam?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Student Trustee Style?
Aye.
And then the last item, 13.1, is our updated budget development timeline, and we did review this, that
Yes.
fiscal. And the good news is we are on schedule with that budget timeline and working hard to get it done. So that's where it is. Any questions on the timeline?
There were no major adjustments to it.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out to those of you who haven't seen it before, not only how detailed it is, but how long it takes. And it's really a major enterprise. Thank you very much, Joe. All right. Are there any other items that we need to consider at this time? If not,
Wow.
I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.